Kind of crazy that we have like the whole fancy studio set up now. We're 7 episodes in, I think.
Yeah, this is number 7.
Yeah, and we still have no idea how to do intros.
Nope.
Yeah.
And we never will.
Yeah, probably not. We got a lot to talk about this episode, be it the Elon partnership with Anthropic, Elon's partnership in air quotes with OpenAI and how that's been going, Bun being rewritten in Rust apparently, everything getting hacked, and of course, Ben getting local model pilled.
Yeah, it had to happen eventually.
Ugh.
I'm sorry ahead of time. It's going to be one of those.
For those who haven't kept up, there's a very interesting deal between Cursor and XAI. They're doing a partnership where they're collaborating on a lot of different things. I'm assuming that XAI has compute that they're willing to lend in order to get the data that Cursor uniquely has, and this partnership will end in one of 2 ways. Either XAI pays a massive breakup fee to Cursor for $10 billion, or if they would like to, by the end of the year, they can buy Cursor for $60 billion. I think it's much more likely the latter will happen. There's no way that they would pay 1/6 as much to just have the temporary partnership when they could just have the whole thing. Both numbers are huge, but I'm sure it's an equity deal. It is what it is. You get the idea. Crazy stuff flying around there. And seemingly because XAI does have compute and doesn't have the data they need, because you need a lot of unique data to make things that are good at coding and long agentic runs, which is the hot thing right now, which is why XAI hasn't really put out anything meaningful. In that same time, SpaceX has now absorbed XAI, and they're now apparently one entity, but they still have a bunch of compute that they don't have much of a use for. Meanwhile, there's this wonderful lawsuit going on between OpenAI and Elon, and Elon's never hated OpenAI more, and he wants to fuel the competition, Anthropic. Anthropic's biggest bottleneck is compute. You might see where this is going. Anthropic has really good models, really good data, really good coding capabilities, but nowhere near enough compute to execute on that. OpenAI has everything they need and more. XAI only has the compute and nothing else, and the result is that Anthropic made quite the deal with XAI in order to use all of their spare compute, which is the entire Colossus 1 data center, around 300 megawatts of compute according to Anthropic, around 450 megawatts of compute according to XAI. Surprise, one of the companies is lying. I have a feeling I know which one. Now there's this unexpected deal between Anthropic and XAI, which is kind of crazy because Elon has said, I think when I searched it at least 40 separate times, he has referred to them as misanthropic and dunked on them super hard, calling them racist, calling them sexist, calling them all of these terrible things for society. Yet, despite all of that, XAI is now loaning compute to Anthropic. How do you feel about this one?
You know, honestly, I'm glad. I feel like we've talked about Anthropic a lot lately, but I feel like most of it's a weird combination of things for them just being shitty lately. And it is a combination of their culture and a lot of issues there, but also just having their backs against the wall with the compute stuff. They finally seem to be mostly solving this. I mean, if you just go through the actual page, their like blog announcement, all of the 5-hour rate limits for Pro, Max, and Team plans are getting doubled, so way more usage on those.
5-hour limits, not the weekly limits.
Yes.
So the amount of compute you could actually do in a given week has not gone up. Mm-hmm. You're not getting more overall, but those 5-hour limits that tended to be brutal, much easier to hit, have been reduced. Increased. That's
the thing is, like, at least anecdotally, I am not a huge Anthropic user at this point, but every time I have tried it, the 5-hour limit gets hit so damn fast. Like, I mean, we were just doing the like gag thing like a week ago on the $20 a month plan. Spinning up a new conductor instance with the G-Stack thing would consume 37% of your 5-hour limit on the $20 a month plan. That's still going to be a lot of usage going through that. Like, it's not unlimited, but it's much more usable. Like, you could actually probably do some work on that now, which is good to see. The API limits, I think, was a big one. I know you care a lot about that side.
Yeah, we have had to do a lot of work in order to get those rate limits expanded for us. I have been in far too many calls with Anthropic sales, especially early last year. Yeah, it's good to see them bumped, especially the input token limits. Those were egregious before, and now that people are like dumping giant PDFs and things, and we have the new million token context, it was necessary. I'm still mad about the caching. The caching is still egregiously bad.
Yeah, it's rough. But I mean, the one good thing about all of this too is the Colossus 1 data center is not just like, oh, here's more AWS compute or whatever. It is NVIDIA GPUs. Like, I don't know exactly what's inside of it. I believe it's just a bunch of H100s and H200s. And according to their blog site, it is over 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs, which is insane. I don't know at their scale. I don't know how much that actually translates to, but still more NVIDIA in Anthropic's hands is going to be a net good for everybody.
Hopefully. I'm more curious to see how things go with our friends OpenAI
Yes.
starting to use other TPU types, like now that they have to make things work on Bedrock, the Trainium chips that are notoriously really good, and everyone loves them.
Yes.
Everyone loves them so much.
For me, more NVIDIA in Anthropic's hand is good because I want Anthropic to do well. I know we have talked so much shit about them and will continue to talk shit about them whenever they do something stupid, which they inevitably will. But good Claude models is a good thing for the industry. I want all of these players to be competitive. And I think my favorite thing and favorite feeling I've started to have over the last couple weeks has been it no longer feels like we are in just either OpenAI or Anthropic is going to win world. Especially, it was really feeling like just OpenAI was going to destroy everyone for a while there. I think we are getting to a point where obviously OpenAI is killing it. Anthropic finally has compute and they are at least behaving better. Like I think Dario going out at the Code with Claude thing and being more transparent than I have ever seen him be, of just being like, hey, look, we're having compute issues. We brought this in. This is how we're going to solve it. If they had just done that a month and a half ago, none of this would have happened. We all would have been way more understanding and chill. It's just literally give us the truth and then we're good. But they should hopefully get better. XAI will actually be a real player now because with the cursor thing, I think that one, we're not going to see the effects of that for a while, but when we do see the effects of it, it's going to be magical. We're actually going to get good models from those two companies together. So that's a third really good company that's competitive. And then Google is just Google. They will eventually be useful. It is an inevitability. It is a question of when, not if. It's just possible that when could be 5 years from now. It's Google. You never really know. I wouldn't be surprised if it took them over another year to crack tool calling because they're just like that.
So hear me out. Anthropic becomes dependent on XAI for compute. XAI is now at least one of the three major players.
Yes.
Cursor gets enough data and good enough at training to make things better for XAI models. Now they're a separate player. Elon succeeds in his goals with the lawsuit with OpenAI, gets to take over OpenAI. Now they own all three, and Google will just keep running around in circles until they kill themselves like a chicken with its head cut off.
Or like my cats in the bathtub chasing their tail because they're about it equally as smart.
Yeah. I do think we should talk a bit about the lawsuit, and knowing this will almost certainly ruffle some feathers and cost me some compute, it's probably worth making sure we get paid this episode.
Yeah, very good idea. Today's sponsor is Postdog, an all-in-one suite of product tools that has literally everything you need to understand what your users are actually doing. They have everything you need to track how users are actually using your product, as well as tracking what errors and logs and issues are coming up within your service. It's an incredible suite of tools used by everyone from Clerk to Supabase to Convex and many, many more. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the insane stuff they built on top of this, starting with Postdog AI, their really powerful AI agent that you can just access within their dashboard. The amount of data they have is great, but it's honestly very annoying to actually query and understand what is actually happening there. This is one of the best use cases for these agents I've seen, where you can just go in and ask in plain English, what are users actually using within the product? And it's not just for asking about things. You can use it to customize the dashboard and build out new visualizations for your data using their built-in tools. I personally am a huge fan of their MCP. I was super skeptical when I first saw it, but as soon as I got it set up within Codex, I had it go off and put together a bunch of dashboards for one of the projects I was working on, and the dashboards were really, really good. And even beyond those, they're currently working on Postdog Code, which is a new AI dev tool that fully understands your product, not just your code base. The idea of it automatically making a PR when it notices a user rage clicking on a button because something was broken or something went wrong, it's a very compelling idea. Postdog is an essential piece of how we build and ship our products, and it will be for you too at nerdsnipe.link/postdog.
I, as you may predict, have thoughts on the OpenAI Elon lawsuit. Not enough to make a video, as I know many have wanted me to do, but it's still very up in the air. I happen to be very familiar with the work of this particular judge because I have closely monitored her work when she was doing the lawsuits against Apple, whereas very much on the other party side, Epic Games, because Epic was entirely in the right suing Apple. It's interesting to see things on the other end where there is much less clarity in who is fucking over who. There is things here for Elon to be upset about, and there are some very dumb texts and entries in Greg Brockman's journal that have been aired out as a result of this lawsuit, where Greg said in pretty direct terms that they were forcing out Elon. At the same time, Elon was trying to fold OpenAI into Tesla, which makes the whole thing kind of questionable. But if I was to do the timeline start to finish, this whole episode would just be talking about it. I'll give the quickest TLDR I reasonably can. OpenAI originally started as YC's AI incubator. I think it was called YCAI at a point. The reason that this was formed was because Y Combinator and other startup-focused individuals like Elon were concerned of a future where the only company that had AI was Google, especially after they acquired DeepMind. It seemed like Google was making a lot of progress in figuring out how to make artificial intelligence. Nobody else was. And of course, startup bros were concerned because if Google's the only company that has AI, everyone's kind of screwed. I mean, look at how Google's AI is now. You can see why everyone would be fucked if they were the only player. As such, Elon and many other rich individuals were willing to put a lot of money into a newly formed nonprofit entity that's goal was to make sure AI was not built by just one specific business. They didn't want one big company to control access to artificial intelligence across the entire industry, economy, and everything else. It could be bad for everything from economics to society. And largely, I agree. I think that was a good, noble motive that they used to form this thing. And through that, they were able to attract some very important talent, including Ilya, including Karpathy, and all of these other legends that have become mythical status figures since then. Then there were some important realizations, specifically the power laws and power scaling in AI. The discovery that you could kind of just throw more compute at the problem and make models that were smarter, better, and more capable was one that wasn't really expected initially. And when it went as far as it did, everyone kind of universally came to the same conclusion that whoever has the most compute wins. Without enough compute, you're kind of just screwed. In order to get a lot of compute, you need a lot of something. That something is money. Even money can barely buy compute at this point. When money was enough to buy compute, you still needed a lot of it. And there's a thing that nonprofits tend to not have a lot of. Do you know what that is?
Money.
Correct. And you can see where this goes. I'm curious if you've actually seen the emails between Elon and Greg about the compute problem and the realization that they had.
No, this is actually one that I have not paid an insane amount of attention to. I actually don't know all that much. I could guesstimate as to what they ended up saying, but I have not seen any deep details of this other than just like a couple of the things on Twitter that went super viral.
There was a lot of back and forth emails between Elon and the founders of OpenAI, Ilya, Greg, and Sam Altman. And this one in particular stands out. This was late 2018. This is from Elon to everyone else I just mentioned. My probability assessment of OpenAI being relevant to DeepMind and Google without a dramatic change in execution and resources is 0%, not 1%. I wish it were otherwise. Even raising several hundred million won't be enough. This needs to be billions per year immediately or forget it. Unfortunately, humanity's future is in the hands of redacted. Don't know what the redacted is still. OpenAI reminds me of Bezos and Blue Origin. They are hopelessly behind SpaceX and getting worse, but the ego of Bezos has him insanely thinking that they are not. I really hope I'm wrong, Elon. That email kind of says it all. Elon agreed throughout this email chain that in order for OpenAI to be competitive, they had to be able to raise a lot of money, get a lot of capital, and be a real potentially profitable business. A nonprofit was not going to be able to compete anymore. And again, the goal wasn't to be charitable. It was very specific. It was to be sure that only one company isn't the only company to discover and make AI happen. I would also argue, and here's where the OpenAI fanboying is going to come out a bit, they achieved that goal. They achieved that goal by publishing the incredible resources and research that they had, by publishing the idea of the general pre-trained model in the transformer and all of the research that they published, enabling many others to go do this. And then at the same time, with GPT-3 being so powerful and the GPT-3 lead researcher team leaving to go form Anthropic, we are no longer in a position where one company is going to own artificial intelligence. I would argue that the founding goal of OpenAI has been achieved. The goal of the nonprofit entity that they had formed in that moment has been attained in that sense. The biggest mistake I see is continuing to call it OpenAI from that point forward. They really should have rebranded it and named it something else. Elon said as much around this window that they are no longer open.
Yeah. And I think that's been incredibly clear over the last few years, where they were super open with all the research and everything they did, like up to the GPT-3 era. Just going back to the most recent biggest innovation in the LLM world, which was reasoning back in, I think it was like early 2025, end of 2024, when the original DeepSeek moment happened. I think this was a big part of the OpenAI and Microsoft tensions, was the fact that OpenAI cracked reasoning super early. I think they were first, not certain, but I think they were first. And when they cracked it, they would not let Microsoft see or tell them how they were doing reasoning. At least that's the speculation. They didn't publish any research on how they did that. And the way everyone else figured out how to do reasoning was not because of what OpenAI did, but because of what DeepSeek did.
DeepSeek was able to infer it from OpenAI's work, and enough info was out. The concept of how chain of thought worked in reasoning models was understandable enough, but yeah, OpenAI did not share enough at that point, but since then there hasn't really been like this big novel discovery at OpenAI that others have been restricted from. Most of the truly like big novel things have broken out and become not just like public knowledge, but are also now in open weight models. So it is what it is.
Yeah, at this point it's not a big deal. I think more what my point is just that there was no research paper for it as compared to there might have been a long time ago or something like that.
This is a thing I think most people miss about all of this. Elon decided as things started ramping up that he wanted to do this all through Tesla. He proposed that Tesla acquire Cerebras and merge it with OpenAI internally. He didn't directly propose this in an email, but there was another email from someone else that did propose it that he forwarded along, suggesting it was a good idea. It was clear that was the direction he had in mind. He wanted whatever potential for-profit entity that OpenAI spun out into to become part of Tesla. Also worth noting at the time that Tesla was having a really rough year in the stock market, and this seemed to be an attempt for Elon to save one of his companies. They ended up doing much better later on, but at the time, this seemed like a Hail Mary bet to do something along those lines, which I can understand. It is worth noting that OpenAI's stance on this is that the only reason nothing here happened is because they couldn't agree to terms on a for-profit alongside Elon, because we felt it was against the mission for any individual to have absolute control over OpenAI. He then suggested merging it into Tesla. In early February 2018, Elon forwarded an email suggesting that OpenAI should, quote, attach to Tesla as its cash cow, commenting that it was, quote, exactly right. Tesla is the only path that could ever hope to hold the candle to Google. Even then, the probability of being a counterweight to Google is small. It just isn't zero.
Well, that low probability definitely ended up hitting.
Yeah.
They did it. They sure as hell did it.
Yep. And they lit a lot of fires in the process.
Yeah.
It does seem like a lot of this is Elon being salty that they succeeded as much as they did after this point, and the reasonable concern that a nonprofit becoming a for-profit sucks. This is totally unprecedented, except for the fact that Mozilla did this with the Mozilla Foundation becoming the Mozilla Corporation, that Siri did this. Originally, Siri was research inside of a university as a nonprofit like research entity that broke off and became a company just so Apple could acquire it. This has happened lots of different times. It's not unusual for a nonprofit to spin out a for-profit entity. It is incredibly unusual for them to use the same name.
Yeah.
This really should have been a separate thing that like OpenAI was able to spin out. I would argue that some part of the goal was retained better through it going this way, because the OpenAI board that was formed ahead of time with the specific goal and charter still exists, still controls OpenAI, the corporate entity. They report to this nonprofit entity still. It's a messy, messy thing. I see why people are upset. I also think a lot of people have been misled here in thinking that this has never happened before when it happens all the fucking time, and that a nonprofit ran off with a bunch of money. Elon put in money and got nothing. The dumbest thing I saw was Greg put in nothing and now has all of this equity worth all this money. Yeah, that's how starting a company works.
Yeah.
It's not like the office was his apartment for a year plus or anything.
Yeah.
It is what it is. If the goal was to form a nonprofit to make sure that the discovery of artificial intelligence was not one that existed purely in the hands of one corporate entity, they succeeded at that goal. I think it's awesome that they published as much stuff as they did. I wish they would go back to publishing things as often as they used to. Whole thing's overblown. Elon kind of made a fool of himself throughout the trial at a lot of different points. Greg did a bit as well, especially once his diary came out. I am now very paranoid of writing anything down about my life because I didn't realize the extent at which like your personal diary is now going to be brought in as evidence because of the discovery process.
Yeah. One question, I haven't looked too closely into that. Was that a handwritten diary? Was that a computer thing? Like, how the hell did they get that? Did he like, I guess it technically would have been a perjury, or it's whatever the equivalent of not disclosing evidence is. I think perjury is lying. I'm not a lawyer. But like, couldn't he have just like not given them the diary or just like thrown it away or something?
Yeah, destruction of evidence is really, really, really bad.
Yeah, true. I guess, yeah, it makes sense, but it's still just like, holy shit, how having to turn that over for evidence is brutal.
It was referred to throughout as Brockman's electronic notes. So he kept a private, digital, personal diary.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. Like, obviously, destroying physical evidence, very bad, don't do that. But if it is a like physical diary that he is just writing in, and that is just a thing that only he has and only he knows about, one, don't write those things down, but two, like, that getting discovered is brutal.
I have a lot of things to purge.
Yeah.
My poor notions would be lit on fire.
Oh, true. You have a very diligent accomplishments record.
Yeah, where I write everything I do every day and have for 3 years now. That needs to not exist anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I'm particularly suspicious of anyone suing me, but if I destroy it now, it's not destruction of evidence.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was hinting to. Just like, why would you keep this, especially at this point? Although I get it. I know that this has happened with a lot of high profile cases like this. The types of people who end up in these situations tend to be the types who like to write these things down and have these records and preserve these things. I get it, but yeah, but a little strategic error there.
I will also say that the most sus thing for me, and it's silly that I'm looking into this and thinking about it so much, is that Sam was posting on Twitter so much more in like the peak of the court case. And now that it's like settled down again, he's just went radio silent on Twitter again. Like that, like crazy uptick in Sam posting almost certainly is related to this. And I hate to admit that.
It probably is. Although, actually, to be fair, I don't know how court cases work. I have never been in court, but like, are you allowed to have your phone when you're sitting in the courtroom?
No, but he wasn't in the courtroom for a lot of it.
I mean, if he's just like stuck at the courthouse dealing with all this stuff, it's also very possible that he was just bored and was just schizo posting.
Yeah.
I think that's the
I think
benevolent read.
I think it's most likely that he like took the week off because he might get called in at any point and had nothing else to do in that window. That is possible, but this one's a mess. And yeah, if you spin out your nonprofit into a for-profit and you took a loan or a donation from a particularly spiteful person, I would recommend that at the very least you rename the entity or make a new entity. Would have been the best idea.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's all I have to say on this one. I'm curious how the results come out. The judge seems to have done her job and got very pissed at everybody trying to take photos throughout.
That's good.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one.
What would happen if this did like rule in Elon's favor?
Damages paid. He would try to get OpenAI, the for-profit entity, disbanded. That would almost certainly get thrown out as like reasonability of the like damage, like in the attempts to repair the damage through whatever rulings occur. I would be very surprised if he got more than like a few $100 billion as a payout, maybe a bill or two, but unlikely. Another really fun thing that came out is that he admitted directly in said court case that he's distilling off of OpenAI outputs.
Seriously?
Which is hilarious. Yeah, that happened like on the stand. And he played it off like everyone does that, but it was funny hearing it so directly from Sam or from Elon that they're doing that.
There's a lot of things that, yeah, everyone does it, but you just don't say it out loud. That is one of those things you don't say out loud.
You have to in court when you're on the stand.
You do, but he's the one who put them in court. Like,
do you know how funny it would have been if he said no and they could get him for perjury for that, though?
Oh my God,
that would have been way better.
Oh yeah.
I think he did the right thing saying the truth there, but still very amusing.
But yeah, he could have just not been there in the first place, and he never would have had to say
it. OpenAI is the only lab that's not distilling.
Actually, it's very possible. Maybe Anthropic, maybe Google, maybe. Although I honestly have no idea. I mean, the big three are definitely the only ones who could be not distilling. Everyone else is 1000% distilling the hell out of everything.
Yep.
Like
maybe Mistral isn't. They're just wrapping DeepSeek with increasingly shitty wrappers.
Wrapping isn't distilling. I guess that's fair.
I'm surprised we haven't seen a new Mistral model now that DeepSeek V4 dropped. I'm sure they're going to find some novel ways to make DeepSeek worse, as they always do.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. We're going to go from DeepSeek V4 to DeepSeek V2. True innovation that only are the finest European company could ever imagine. I don't know. Yeah, well, we've talked about this before. Like that stupid article from Anthropic where they were accusing all the Chinese labs of distilling with horrible numbers, which were just like obviously not enough to actually be distilling their models. When like Yeah, I don't know why they included the numbers, because we all know they are doing it and there are other ways that they're doing it. Just don't include the numbers. You look stupid when you do it.
Much funnier, in my opinion, is that in the same like 2-ish week window, XAI said they're going to acquire Cursor, almost certainly just to get data to distill on, confirmed in court that they're distilling OpenAI models, and made a deal with Anthropic, the company who's most sensitive to being distilled.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, SpaceX is now buying or acquiring or partnering with Cursor to get a bunch of Anthropic data to use to distill.
Oh, true. I didn't even think about that, because Cursor is actually the ultimate Anthropic data farm. Like they have so much Anthropic data.
I would not be surprised if at this point in time, Cursor has more data than Anthropic does for how Anthropic models behave in coding situations.
Probably. I don't know what the current usage and token counts through all of them look like. Like maybe Claude Code caught up, just because I know their numbers and growth are absurd. But definitely on just raw volume of coding data, Cursor has the most.
Yep.
There's no world in which they don't. They've been ahead for so long, and even now, they don't have the zeitgeist is not behind them, but they're still crushing it. There's still a shitload of people using them. It's really good.
Anthropic did just generate a whole lot more data, though.
What did they do?
They ported Bun from Zig to Rust.
Yes, they did. This is a very interesting one. I think actually the right place to kind of start talking about this is the slot forks and stuff like that. Because have we actually talked about that?
Slot forks?
Yeah.
That might deserve a whole episode, honestly. But
I think it does. We'll do a very brief section on it here of just the one that kicked all of this off was when Cloudflare forked Next.js to Vite, because they were tired of dealing with the proprietary Next.js stuff being very painful to host anywhere outside of Vercel. It is doable, but it is not easy. So they wanted it on Vite because everything else is on Vite. Then how long did it take? It was like a couple days, like a week or something. And
a week and 7 CVEs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the big point too. And where the slot fork name came from, where they basically just took all of the tests and just went test by test, piece by piece, and had an LLM port it over from normal Next.js to vNext, their thing. And it kind of worked. Kinda.
They got a government site deployed on it.
Yeah, it was 7 CVEs, which is a choice for sure. But really the thing that came out of that, and I remember there was a bunch of discourse around this of like, clearly test suites matter a ton, because as we've talked about many times, the best thing you can do for these models is give them some grounding in reality, some source of truth to work against, a goal type thing. And test suites are an amazing form of this, where if you can just have the model run in a loop over and over and over again until it can get the test suite to go green, that's a really good way to get it to do some pretty big, insane stuff. And this bun rewrite from Zig to Rust seems like the ultimate version of this, because I was looking for it. I can't find the post. I could have sworn I saw a post from Jared where he was talking about how it wasn't like the model didn't fork the test suite. It did not rewrite the tests from Zig to Rust. The tests are agnostic. They're basically runtime tests of the actual compiled running thing. So it is a much more accurate and safe version of this, so that the model can't go in, change the tests and poison them and do sneaky little things in order to get them to go green, as these models tend to do. They like being sneaky. This forced it to actually be correct, and it seems like the end result is really good. Like he just posted that 99.8% of Bun's existing test suite passes on Linux x64 in the Rust rewrite.
He also said that it's basically the same code base, except now we can have the compiler enforce the lifetime of types, and we get destructors where we want them, and the ugly parts look uglier, unsafe, which encourages refactoring.
Yes.
There is a lot of unsafe throughout this code base. Somebody posted a like baby's first Rust code joke that screenshotted some of the awful Rust code that the model wrote. It's like an unsafe where it just like blindly frees like memory as a single function.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just like all these beautiful sins.
Yep.
This is going to be a sinful code base because Zig does not care how you use memory. That is up to you.
Yep.
Rust does not compile unless you make it happy with everything memory-wise, and they have their equivalent of any in TypeScript, which is unsafe.
Yes.
Not as in the types are being honored, but since Rust has this concept of the borrow checker where it enforces memory consistency and like usage properly, like if one thing can't access a certain chunk of memory, other things downstream need to confirm the other thing isn't using it before they can mutate it. The borrow checker is part of the compiler, computationally enforces that you're not doing anything stupid with RAM, which makes it a lot harder to have a memory leak and other memory issues. This is an increasingly important thing as security issues are being found everywhere in software. The government actually put Rust on a short list of programming languages that they think are safe enough to be used for production software as they try to phase C++ out because C++ lets you just kind of do whatever, which is very, very dangerous when you have to worry about what's going on in an application. If you don't know what has access to a given piece of memory at any given time, you can use that to take over most systems. And Bun might not necessarily be risky in this regard, but Bun does have a lot of memory issues, in particular on Windows, and a lot of people building on top of Bun have been struggling with this. This is why OpenCode is making the move away from Bun back to just standard, boring old Node, because Node tends to be more reliable on all distributions, especially Windows. This is also why Claude Code is probably the team pushing for this, because Claude Code on Windows, I can say firsthand, is not the best experience.
Yeah, there was another post from Jared that was, actually what he said was that Rust makes segfaults much more difficult by design. That is the primary motivation here. This is very clearly a targeted pass to get the stability of Bun up, because as wonderful as Zig is, and when it works, Bun is still incredible. I love Bun and everything they've done. It is an incredible piece of technology. In order to do that, they did it in Zig, and in Zig, you can do whatever the hell you want and go as insane as you want, which is really great if you know what you're doing, but also means that you have a giant gun loaded and pointed at your foot 24/7 that will allow you to segfault at any time if you are not paying super close attention. This is putting guardrails not only on the engineers writing Bun, but now the Claude, which is writing most of Bun at this point, I would assume.
Over under, what are the chances that this becomes the main version of Bun and the Zig one gets deleted? What's your guess?
More than 50%.
I'm thinking like more than 80. It's very likely this becomes it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Zig version's gone by end of month.
Yeah. And Jared did say that there is a 0% chance that he would merge the Rust port without the end result being measurably better than Zig in performance, memory usage, stability, and stability is the priority here. But, this has been going on for like a week or something like that. Like, this is a very new thing. It is already really, really close. Give Mythos enough time to go screw around and get everything patched up and figured out. Yeah, I'd be surprised if this doesn't land.
Yeah. Is this going to be the first Mythos slot fork?
It probably are. Yeah, it probably is, actually. This is probably, we don't know for sure, and they would never say this publicly, but Bun was acquired by Anthropic. Anthropic employees have Mythos. I'd be surprised if they were not sticking Mythos on this. So maybe if we want to take a look at some Mythos code, we finally can in Bun. I don't know. I hope this goes through. And I think this is just like, and we've talked about this again in the past, of like, models need guardrails. Models need things to force them on the happy path and to not drift off into hallucinatory madness land. And, this is just another guardrail to give it. The borrow checker is a very good guardrail to make sure that agents are not flying off the rails and doing crazy shit.
It is worth noting that they're basically not using the borrow checker at all yet, because it's all just unsafe. As he said, it's like a line for line rewrite of the Rust or of the Zig version. So they're not seeing that benefit yet, and it'll be a while before they do, but at least they have a keyword to search for, and they can tell the model like, hey, go find it unsafe and remove it.
Exactly. And I mean, almost certainly they're going to be doing that. Like, that has got to be the North Star, because that's where you get the real stability wins of like, okay, we can now at compile time be very confident that this is not going to segfault out in weird, bizarre ways that'll just hurt our end users.
Also worth noting that the core of the thing that actually runs your code in Zig was and still is JSC. It is not using V8 or its own custom runtime. All of this code is modifications to JSC, bindings into JSC, and all these other things so that you can like access files on your file system, so you can run servers and do all the other shit that you would expect to be able to do with a CLI-based JavaScript engine. It also has all the other fancy features like the bundling and things. Like Bun is a lot of code. People seem to think that the runtime itself is a big part of Bun and like what they wrote. It's a big part of what they integrate and build around, but the actual core that runs your JavaScript is the same. So all they really have to rebuild is the bindings from that to all these other things. That shouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it's certainly also not going to be fun.
No, I don't envy that. This is not a problem I would want to solve. And especially with all the crazy stuff they have on top, because like they did their SQLite thing, they have a Redis client, they just introduced bun.image for like image manipulation stuff for resizing and rotating and changing formats and a bunch of random stuff. Like there are a lot of utilities built into Bun that don't exist in Node. I don't know if we've talked about this even offline, but I actually like that they do a lot of this stuff. I think some of their APIs are a little incomplete, especially stuff like the Redis one is just not fully usable because it doesn't fully implement the spec. But generally speaking, having all of these things built into Bun is it's a very nice experience when it does work.
I have my issues with that. That's a whole separate topic. As tempting as it is for me to bite, I'm going to resist because there's a much more important thing to bite that is related to all of this. The absolute hell that we are in with security. I knew this would happen. I thought it would happen pretty quick. I didn't expect it to be so fast and so egregious, and I certainly didn't expect everybody to be so fucking quiet about it.
I think my problem with all of this, and this is a me problem, but I think everyone else has this issue, is we are so desensitized at this point to everything. Just the internet has done this where like you just see, oh no, XYZ is exploding and went down and there's this big new security thing. And we've just heard so much of it that it doesn't feel like it's a huge deal when it actually is an insanely huge deal.
I'm going to crash out so bad.
Yeah.
I think we need to take a quick break for the sponsor before I do that.
Yeah. We've talked a lot on this show about one, how good these coding agents have actually gotten, and two, how painful it is to get good data into the agents. I cannot tell you how absurdly painful it is to go into the Google Cloud dashboard in 2026, try and figure out the correct auth scopes and callbacks and logins and everything just to get my emails into my agent. It is so painful for no reason, unless you use today's sponsor Composio, who makes all of this so much easier. Their SDK is excellent and has everything you need to, within 5 minutes, go from just having a normal chatbot agent to an agent that can sign into Notion or Slack or Gmail or Google Calendar or Supabase or Google Sheets or over 1,000 other toolkits to actually bring those into your app and make it a much, much better experience for your end users. But it also works really well for you, in you specifically, because they recently introduced Composio for You, which is an incredibly powerful system for almost acting like a gateway type thing so that you can log in on their dashboard to your Notion workspace, your Figma account, your Google account, your whatever account, log into all of those, have all those data sources. Then it is super easy to bring that into any coding agent you're currently working with, be it Claude Code, Codex, OpenClaw, or anything else. It just kind of works because they have a really good MCP server and a really good CLI. The whole system just feels so good. Oh, and by the way, when you hook up a toolkit like Gmail, switching between accounts like different Gmail addresses is trivial because you don't have to. You can connect all of them up at once and they will all just work. The problem with agents for the longest time has just been trying to hook all of these disparate pieces together. I cannot tell you how useful it is to have a coding agent that can actually interface with my Google accounts and my Notion accounts all in one place. It makes life so much easier. And as soon as you have it, you'll question how you ever worked without it at nerdsnipe.link/Composio.
I think it's crash out time.
Yeah,
I'm upset.
It's deserved.
I'm borderline in security psychosis at this point. I am convinced that the world is about to collapse underneath a bunch of random exploits. Copy fail is really bad. Really bad. Copy fail, for those who have not been obsessively keeping track of everything going on in the security world, is a fun new bug that is an allocation issue in how memory is freed in Linux. And this bug allows you to execute a very simple, relatively innocent-looking line of Python code that can give you full root on pretty much any Linux kernel before this was patched. This bug was patched properly. This was disclosed, as you would expect, to Linux kernel developers. An innocuous commit appeared in the Linux history, and this change was merged into stable, which chances are none of you are running yet, because very few people are good about keeping their Linux kernel up to date. I got shipped a laptop a few weeks ago from a particularly popular laptop manufacturer. I won't say who it is. I'll just say it's not Framework. That came with a patched kernel in order to handle the drivers for this particular laptop. That was about 4 minor versions behind the one that had the patch for copy fail, as is most Linux distros. If you're running Red Hat Enterprise Linux, there's a good chance you are behind on versions. A lot of these distros have shipped updates to block this at a system level instead of at the kernel level for that version. There have been about 6, I have found, new issues that are able to exploit that same system vulnerability in the kernel, and others that exploit other similar ones, all found, of course, with AI, and much more importantly, all can be exploited as well with AI. There are 2 fundamental truths that we've kind of relied on throughout the history of security software disclosures. The first is that you have enough time with the disclosure process to get things fixed, merged, shipped, and distributed to your users before the nature of the exploit goes public. And the second is that the actual nature of those fixes is usually obscure enough in the history of the project that very few people can look at it and know it's even a security fix, much less that it's one that can be exploited. That's over now. That's not like, oh, maybe some people know. It's fucking over. If any security issue occurs in an open source repo and it is fixed with a commit that is in the history, that thing's now pwned until every single user's on the latest version. Because now everyone has fucking bots running on the maintainers list on Linux whenever a new commit gets merged, checking, hey, maybe this one was a security issue. What's the issue? How do we exploit it? It's very easy to run a bot on every single commit that goes into Linux and figure out if you can use that commit to exploit things that are before that commit. In fact, even a lobotomized model like 3.1 Pro from Google has been handed a commit hash from a Linux email chain and was able to recreate an exploit that wasn't fucking public yet. It's over.
Oh my God, I had not read that line. I tested on Gemini 3.1, 5.5, Opus 4.7. All three got it right away. And you know what the prompt for what they did to like figure out if this was a security vulnerability patch was literally just like, without searching, does this look like a security patch? And gave them the commit hash and maybe a link. That was it. And that was all it took for them to be like, yep, this is a security patch. And then you ask a couple more questions, figure out exactly what the vulnerability is. Holy shit.
Yep.
Holy shit.
And this is on top of the fact that people aren't even doing the normal disclosure process. Some random person on their blog posted a new way to pwn a fucking uint32 on every Linux distro that's still active. The commit that fixes this hasn't made it to stable yet. They're just publishing this shit because, like, who cares?
Yeah.
And like, we could go into the details about how Linux distro maintainers don't get part of the disclosure process. They just kind of are expected to merge the latest kernel whenever and hope for the best. No, the Linux distro authors or maintainers were disclosed on any of these most recent ones. So none of them knew the urgency of getting these updates out. It's over.
Yeah. Well, it's not even just like, it is literally, so like in this one, the one article that you linked, the guy responsibly disclosed it, put it in there, put up the patch, made sure that it was all prepped and ready to go. He did not share it publicly. He did it all right, but someone else noticed it and then someone else shared it publicly. So there was a public disclosure of this vulnerability before it was actually merged and fixed. And it's just going to keep happening.
I could probably set up a bot in just a few minutes that will sit there, and every time a new email comes in through the Linux mailing list, check the commit, see what changed in it, and if there is something that can be exploited, kick off another sub-agent that like writes a blog post about the theoretical exploit that was here, and then auto-posts it on fucking Hacker News and keep like racking up karma and also making it way easier for hackers to exploit things.
Yeah.
But even just me saying this just got 100 people to go do the same thing, on top of the 10,000 plus hackers that are already doing shit like this.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's like over. We are now nearing a point where open source has to mean something different.
Yeah.
Where open source software shouldn't just be every commit, every PR, everything is part of the same public distribution. GitHub will never make this possible. People have done a ton of hacks. If you're one of the people trying to build a better GitHub, one of the things you need to do right fucking now is make it so the source code that people are looking at is separate from the source code that the maintainers are maintaining, maybe on like a 2 week to 2 month delay, and the ability to lock the delay temporarily for some amount of time. We need a way to merge security fixes to our open source projects that can't trivially be pwned such that we can get these releases out. But otherwise, this is just going to be the death of fucking open source.
Yeah, well, and it's fucking horrifying because literally that rant you just did, if you took that audio clip and you just took that file and you texted it to an OpenClaw instance, anyone's OpenClaw instance, they have that bot set up. It's done. It will just do all of that for you. They can just do it now. They can grab the emails. They can do the posts. They can do all of the analysis. It is so fucking easy to do this. Anyone can do it.
Yep.
There is no more... It's remarkable how much of the world of security was held up by the sheer fact that not enough people knew what they were doing and not enough people had the time or expertise to do it. And crashing that check is gone. Like knowledge and time aren't a bottleneck anymore. And this is horrifying. So like, I'm just thinking this through with my own stuff. Just starting with the kernel level for this kind of thing, like what even is the solution for this? Like for NPM packages, a lot of, I think the big package managers are auto disabling, like auto running post install scripts and stuff like that. At least I have noticed that on all of mine, and I have that turned on for all of mine, so that if you install a package and it has a post install, it will not run it unless you explicitly tell it to, because it would be so trivial to sneak one of those little Python scripts in there and have that be a post install and grab your entire fucking computer.
How many npx commands have you run in the past week?
Not very many. I deliberately don't run very many. The only ones that I guess would technically count would be stuff like, like DrizzleKit push or DrizzleKit Studio or something.
How
like
many
that.
Pi installs have you run?
I mean, they push a lot of updates, so a lot. But that's like the actual Pi source. Like that's building directly from theirs. But for a thing we're about to talk about here soon with the DS4 and local model stuff, the way I installed that was Pi install git repo. And that is just blindly installing what is in that repo into my Pi instance. I know who made this. I trust it. It's fine, hopefully. But, there could be literally anything in there.
Yep. I am at the point where I'm considering running like my password manager on a separate kernel from other things. Like it's over. Everything is about to get pwned like we've never seen. This is like it is starting. It is very visible, and nobody's talking about it. My video talking about it, my multiple videos talking about it, just fucking bombed. Nobody cares about the fact that the entire world of security and digital life is about to collapse in front of us because everything is going to be fucking pwned. Not some things, not like some people. No, it's over. And I will continue to raise the alarm bells over the fuck I can, even though nobody cares. We are so fucked. We are so fucked. And yeah, I'm going insane.
I don't know what the solution is.
Move to a farm in the middle of fucking nowhere in the woods.
I need a couple more years before I can do that. But I mean, yeah, that is a good solution. But if you're trying to operate in this world and do all of this stuff, it's especially tough because as the agents are getting better and as the AIs are getting better, there is more and more cool shit we can do by letting the AIs go off on magical adventures and do crazy shit. We've talked about OpenClaw before. It's really cool. Like there's some genuinely insane stuff here, but it's also a security nightmare. And there are so many places and ways that you can just get destroyed by that. You have to sandbox all of this stuff properly. You need to have such robust permission checks on every single little thing, or else you are just leaving a little backdoor in there for it to just sneak a little thing onto your OpenClaw machine. And if you just happen to be logged into something on that machine that you shouldn't have been, you're fucked. Your 1Password is gone. It's over.
We're going to get to the point where like there's TSA levels of regulation around software. Like once like people's local hospitals are getting pwned all the time and shit. Did you see Canva got hit? Like I literally gave the example of Canvas. Yeah. I gave the specific example last time we talked about this of people's like local schools, libraries, and hospitals being hacked. Every school just got hacked with the Canvas hack.
Yeah.
Like
and Canvas,
everyone.
Canvas isn't just like a little piece of the school. That is like, I went to Ohio State for a couple of years, and when I was there, they used Canvas, or they called it Carmen Canvas, their version of it. That is everything. That has my transcripts, that has my information, that has my social security number, that has all of my classes, my address. Everything is in there. You get that, you have all of the information about all of the students done, and it's gone. They have it. All of that data was breached.
And if word comes out that all of this is happening because of AI in those data centers that everyone hates, we're about to see the worst legislation ever proposed. And I understand where it's coming from because this is bad. And for some reason, our entire field's ignoring it. So once again, reminder, we need to fucking talk about the security issues more. This is not like, oh, maybe. It's no longer an if. It's a now. Not even a when. It's happening. It's happening in front of us, and we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
I'm upset.
Yeah, God, this is there's so much, and it's just the way media and the internet is. If you're just not paying close attention to anything, you see so many XYZ is falling apart, blah, blah, blah. This is really, really bad. A lot of those things are just not true and are just played up for hype or whatever. This is one of the few cases where it is true, but we're just in a boy who cried wolf from hell situation where the big one is here. This is the actual big one. This is the one that actually matters. This is the real problem with AI. It's not the data centers. It's not the water. It's not any of this random bullshit. It is this. It is the fact that all of digital everything, and everyone has everything digital, everything from your credit cards and Apple Pay, your social security number, your taxes. I file my taxes by sending the IRS some money over ACH transfer. All of this can just get yoinked and destroyed instantly.
But the AI can be used to make the systems more secure.
And the thing is, it will be. Like, both of these things are going to happen. Both are true. But it's like, can you go fast enough? Because it is going to become a whack-a-mole game, and it is going to become basically an arms race now of good faith individuals trying to patch these things and do them right, which we're already seeing with this, fighting against bad faith individuals, sharing them publicly early and not doing these things responsibly. And, you know, there are big companies like, you know, credit where it's due. Anthropic's Glasswing thing is coming from a good place of trying to get ahead of this stuff and give it to not just Linux, but, you know, we haven't even gotten into like Apple or Microsoft, like those big operating systems. I would bet that there's a lot of very big fixes that have been shipped out recently to Windows and Apple. And I'm at the point where I would not run any of my devices on anything other than the latest update for security and everything.
Ugh, it's a shame the latest updates are also garbage on all these platforms. I have a couple Windows 10 PCs I need to like nuke off orbit now, which I don't like.
Yeah, same. Like I'm actually like with even my Mac Mini on OpenCloud stuff, like I really have to lock that thing down more and do more with it. Cause like I've gone really hard with a lot of things for the tools it has access to, but that's not enough. Like the computer itself needs to be fully sandboxed effectively.
And mine was still on CloudBot.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
God only knows what's in there. I know all the big companies threw a ton of engineers at that. I know I was watching like a Jensen interview and they like threw 3 or 4 engineers at it to just find security issues, and they found a lot.
I'm just at the point where I'm treating everything as already compromised, like just assume it is. And what I'm more concerned about is like permanent deletion of things that are important. Like I'm just going to assume everything I have is stolen. What happens if they delete the thing or hold it ransom? Like what if my Google Drive was locked? What would I do? How do I deal with that? So I'm starting to like do more religious backups of my shit.
Same.
I now have my Synology mirroring to 2 other clouds to back up the like data that's important there, just to minimize the chance that a compromise happens, and that I have other copies of things. I might start doing offline backups of some things too.
Same.
Considering having a mirrored Synology that's only on my local network, that's not on the internet at all, that's like hard firewalled off, where I clone all of my data just on that with its own isolated fucking everything.
I need to do the same, to be honest with you. The more I think about
fucking
this,
hard drive prices are insane right now. Like, why are hard drives more expensive?
Yeah, I know.
I understand flash and SSDs.
The supply chain, baby. Yeah, it's fucked. It's weird too, because there's a lot of things where like I wouldn't have been a huge local everything guy in the past, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, man, I really do need to beef this stuff up, because, you know, and it's not even just like the crazy big stuff like the banks and the big shiny things, like even the more mundane things for us. Like if someone was able to brick and destroy our Notion, we would be fucked. There is so much valuable stuff we have in there that's not monetarily valuable, but organizationally valuable, to the point where like we lose our calendar, we lose our schedule, we lose all of our database of what we need to do for what company and all these different things. We're really, 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 really fucked.
Fun fact, Eva made her first like breakout into the Twitter hacker world because she pwned our Notion.
Oh, are you kidding?
You didn't know that?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I always think of Eva with the Firebase thing because that was legendary and hilarious.
She started pwning me.
Damn.
She's like, hey, should I be able to like edit the things in your Notion?
No.
Yeah, good times. I just had quite a moment looking at hard drive prices. I spent a lot of time on server part deals, probably more than I should, probably more than any human should. And I saw that a 16 terabyte drive from Dell or Seagate, a Dell Seagate hybrid drive, is refurbished, sold for $400. And I went to check my order history when I ordered when I was ordering drives, and I saw that for me it was $700. It's like, oh yeah, $700. It's $400 now. It's sold out, but like reasonable prices. If I bought it to the 26 terabyte, it's like $575. I again bought a 16 terabyte for $730. Cool, price of sale going down. Wait, I bought 4 of them for $730.
Are you kidding me? And they're $400 now? Am I about to have to spend like 10 grand on home server shit?
Just the hard drives, yes.
Like I'm gonna do it, but dude. Oh my God. This is insane.
Switch to 16. Yeah, 16 terabyte drives like the ones you can buy. Fucking Toshiba drives for $400. Ugh, you kidding? At the time I bought my drives, I bought as many as I could fit, and I was like, I'm gonna regret only doing 16 terabytes and not getting more drives. I'll buy them eventually, but like it is what it is. I'm never again waiting to buy hardware when I need it. If I even vaguely need it, I'm just buying it. If it goes down, cool, and I see the prices drop. If it goes up, whatever, I have what I need.
Yep. Well, I know what I'm going to be doing after this podcast. I'm going to be spending way too much money on the hardware because I'm doing a home server thing at my place, and I think I'm also probably going to do one back at my family's place in Ohio. I think that's a wise thing to do.
Yep, we are at that point.
Like, I knew it was bad academically, and I'd heard you talk about it, and I was just like trying to not think that deeply about it, but actually sitting here reading through this entire article, this is so bad.
Security stuff?
Yeah,
Hey,
this
we're
is
fucked.
so
It's
bad.
over. It's like
This is
over.
so bad.
Yeah, I don't think people understand. I've been trying to raise the alarm bells for a while on this.
Yeah.
And no one listened, and everyone else is going to wake up to it and be like, wow, it's crazy how this is all happening. Like, why didn't anyone warn us? And
Yeah.
and then the JavaScript influencer getting ignored the whole time.
Yeah, like, look, guys, this is a very real message. I know I love Theo, but he can be a little hyperbolic sometimes, and he likes to talk in big words about most things. This is not one of those cases when he says that this is the biggest deal ever. This actually is the biggest deal ever. This genuinely matters a ton. There are so many things that need to be fixed and changed as a result of this, even just down to local dev environments. Like, it probably should be happening in sandboxed areas. NPM command should not be happening locally. OpenClaw stuff, I want to keep going harder with it, because that's the thing that's hurting me too, is it's like, okay, I can do the security stuff super well and make that super robust, but then I am kneecapping the ability of these new systems and agents to actually run and do their thing. The OpenClaw gets worse when I gut it and I make it so that it can only touch very specific things, and then maybe you go through and do a crazy permission system, but then it's fucked and I'm not actually getting any benefit if every single time it wants to touch something, I get a text like, hey, can I read this readme.md file on your project's directory? And it sucks.
On one hand, we are all freely YOLO moding more than we ever have. On the other, those same agents, like the security issue isn't like your agent in YOLO mode might do something slightly less ideal than you expect. It's that those same agents are pwning fucking everything.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're sandboxing your agents, your system might still get pwned by some other random bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a thing too where like you can do like the don't auto approve things, manually approve shell commands and stuff like that. But because of the way agents have changed and are going at this point, it is not like you're approving a read command. You're approving an SH script, which was handwritten by the agent to do some specific thing. It is going to be 50 lines of undecipherable bash commands that are doing a bunch of random things, because that's how they like reading files in bulk now. I'm looking at like the way my model, I'm like, hey, what do all of these different files do? It writes a for loop in bash to do that shit.
Ready for me to ruin your life a little bit more?
Yeah, go for it.
When you're on my network, we're running a pretty solid system. Everything's up to date, latest on enterprise grade hardware. You know me, I care a lot about my shit. When you're on my network, you're on my DNS, you're on my you're on my WANs, you're on my resolution layer, you're on my everything. Unless you do something stupid like a tail scale out of my network and resolve all of that externally. And it would be really bad if you were to do that type of resolution layer on a router that is from, I don't know, like an ISP that's not good about keeping their shit up to date, like a certain AT&T. Just saying. All of the network security benefits you get by being in my studio are negated by the silly little T icon in your top right corner of your laptop that you insist is worth it for everything.
But it is so fucking useful. That's
then
the problem.
Fucking secure your local network.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, I'm going to be spending way too much money after this recording.
Do you know what those like little $200 fiber breakouts that people make that are running hacked firmware in order to lie to AT&T, tell them that you're using their official router when you're not?
No.
Yeah.
I would like one.
Yeah. They're
that
not
sounds
cheap,
lovely.
but they are necessary to get out of the situation you're in right now.
Yeah, they are. Because it is just the AT&T routers that, fuck.
Yep. Using hardware provisioned by your company is now a liability. Using networking equipment provisioned by your ISP is now a liability. Using anything running Android is now a liability. Not that it wasn't before.
Yeah, it's Android. Come on.
We're all fucked. If OpenBSD is getting pwned, it's over.
Yeah, it's completely over. And now it's just like risk mitigation and doing whatever you can while still getting the benefits. That's the thing that hurts me the most. I wish we lived in a perfect world where this wasn't a problem, because there's so much insanely cool shit that I want to do. I want to live in a world where I can just have all of my computers networked together 24/7, talking back and forth, so I can have crazy cool local shit happening at my place, and then I have this here, and it all just works. But that's not. You can still do that, but clearly it's a lot more work than the vast 99.9% of people are ever going to do. You and I will do it. A lot of other people will do it, but not enough people.
I'm just concerned that there are so many people who know way less about networking and network security than me, blindly running Tailscale on all their devices, not realizing that the nature of a shared network across the internet and how not like inherently super risky that is as a technology, but as a concept and the way people are using it, especially once you're like tail scaling in random boxes on the cloud that you're letting do whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Now that thing has access to your dryer and your washing machine that are on your local network and all that. Like, do you have any smart devices? Are those smart devices on their own SSIDs? Are they properly sandboxed out of your network? Because I guarantee my washer and dryer in the other room have already been pwned. Not that those specific ones in there right now are currently running malware, but if somebody was malicious enough and interested enough, they could. Thankfully, I sandbox all my shit, and I do that on a network level with enterprise network gear that I won't even name at this point because I don't want people to know what my stack is.
Yeah.
I have to do that shit.
Yep. You know, the one bright side of this is I feel a little bit better about that shitty washer dryer combo unit that my apartment has. That is very, very dumb, very not connected. I don't have any smart devices.
Do you know
other
how
than
nice
light
it is
switches.
getting notifications when your washer and dryer are done doing their thing?
Yeah, it sounds lovely. Like I see the vision and I would like it, especially like it's such a dumb little thing, but putting smart switches within my office so that I can just be like, hey Siri, turn on the lights in my studio, and then I am prepped and ready to go record. It's dumb, but it's nice.
You just turned at least like 50 members of our audience's lights on by saying that.
Hell yeah. Enjoy.
I'm going to go deal with the things in my washer while you talk about pottery, I think.
So while Theo's gone, there's one thing that I wanted to bring up and keep kind of brief. I was looking at Twitter today and Dax started posting about how he's been using like agents and models a hell of a lot more lately. And he was looking for the right way to put it. And he ended up posting the metaphor that I've had in my head. I've said this to people offline, but I haven't made the video on this yet or said it publicly. And I'm sad that he beat me to it because I think it's a beautiful metaphor. The way you work with agents and the way you code with agents is not the way most people are used to thinking about things, myself included. The way I always thought about writing code was I'd be like, okay, I need to implement the database service for my project. That means that I need to connect to the database. I need to have the like release cleanup so that whenever the server goes down, it also disconnects from the database. And then I need to make all of the endpoints, and then I need to make all of the functions that actually do the database queries and set all those up properly. And this is a step-by-step process that would look kind of like if you are building a building or something like that. You build the foundation, and then you build the scaffolding, and then you put the siding on it and keep filling it up. It's that linear progression. The best way I've found to actually work with coding agents and get useful code out of them is to not treat them iteratively like that, where you are going step by step and building it up, but rather letting them go off and build the entire thing at once. So build the entire database service. Just because you tell them to do it, they will do it. And then when they do it, they will do it slightly wrong. It will be slightly malformed. And if you've ever seen pottery or how pottery works, you have this blob of clay or whatever you're using, and you are slowly shaping it into something. So you'll shape it into a thing and it will be slightly malformed. And then you will slowly just trim and mold and just caress it into the right shape over time. And that is the way I am working with code at this point. I start with the full version of the code, and then I slowly massage that code down into the correct shape. Get rid of the extra bullshit it add in any missing functionality, trim it, clean it, make sure that it follows the actual shape that I want it to, make sure it fits into the system nicely. Code is very fluid. It doesn't work or feel the way it used to. It feels like you are molding and changing it over time. It feels like it feels like pottery. Like just go look at any video of someone doing pottery stuff, and that's what code feels like at this point. I really like this metaphor. I'm sad he beat me to it, but it's good. It's a really good way to think about how to actually use these things.
Sorry about that. I was actually moving my laundry. I wasn't joking there. I am very behind on everything in my life at the moment. And now I'm slightly less behind on one of those things. Yeah, the clay stuff. I think it's silly, but at the same time, I think it's more silly that other people weren't already building this way. I talked about this a lot in many of my videos. I've been building this way for a while, where I'm just trying to massage the thing into the shape that feels right, knowing that I don't have that shape when I go in. I don't have a specific vision in mind, and if I do, it gets destroyed by reality soon after. If you're holding yourself to a really strict spec as you implement, you're doing things wrong. This has been my journey of the last 6 months, has been almost entirely psychological with the AI stuff. It has not been learning new things or understanding new things. It has been getting over weird mental barriers in my head. The way I think and the way I like doing things, and I'm sure I am not alone in this, just reading Twitter, a lot of the way I would do things is I really liked being super in control and thinking things through and doing it right on the first try. I felt like that mattered a lot and I cared a lot about that. So I would and you've seen me do this many times, where
I just don't naturally bias towards, yeah, fuck it, I'll try it and see if it works. And then if it doesn't, I'll just keep iterating over and over again. I try and plan it and think through it and do it right the first time, rather than being willing to just kind of test something, see if it kind of works, and then turn that into the correct solution. And now that the AI stuff exists, code is insanely cheap and easy and fast to make and have exist. You need to get really, really, really comfortable with throwing shit away.
It is truly incredible to me how few engineers are even somewhat okay with the idea of throwing away code and will do everything in their power to prevent you from doing it. It's so common that we've now like ingrained even in the AI systems that when you remove a feature, it adds unit tests to make sure it's removed. Like we are so bad at removing code that we test that we did it. It's so insane. It's actually absurd the level at which most people are not willing to do those types of things. I've always hated that. I've thrown away as much code as I've written, if not more so, throughout my career. I love tossing code. It means that you're making progress. And
it does.
People's lack of willingness to write disposable code and then toss said disposable code has always been astounding to me. Because like if you write code in the simplest possible way, you get to learn a whole bunch of stuff. You get to maybe actually solve the problem. And if not, you can throw it away and go do it right the next time. It's so much better and cheaper than just going through it. The one thing that I find really cool about the AI stuff is the level at which not only is that easier, but other types of like molding and reshaping are suddenly way more viable. A story that I've been thinking a lot about is an experience I had at Twitch when we were trying to upgrade to the latest version of Apollo GraphQL, where they changed how the Hawk wrapper worked because everything's moving over to using React hooks. In doing that, they broke some of the type definitions that were being used heavily across Twitch, and we had about 5,000 separate files break.
Holy shit.
But we needed this update. I was pushing really hard for this update. So the browser clients team tried. They wrote some scripts to try to auto-update everything they could, and what was left was still around like 1,200 or so files. So they put each one of the file paths in a Google Sheets page, and you would go through and grab chunks of it and put like your Slack username on it saying, I will own these 70 files. And we broke it up across the entire company and all the volunteers who chose to like work on this that week. And we were able to go through and manually patch all of the files that were still affected across Twitch's giant code base by hand, because that's what we had to do.
Yeah. Oh, Mythos would be great for that.
The fucking Haiku would be great for that. The shit was not hard.
True, actually, yeah.
I'd use DeepSeek V2.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mistral edition.
Yeah.
I could run models on my phone that could do most of the work I had to do there. It wasn't hard work. It was just fucking annoying.
Yeah. Ugh.
The code mod I wrote for it probably could have been written with like a Sonnet 3.5 class model. This was not a challenging task.
No.
It was just a tedious one. And those types of things that just didn't make sense before now do. The gap between the people who understand how to use LLMs properly at work and in like real code bases and the people who don't has never been wider. On one hand, we have people like Jared, who is rewriting Bun from Zig to Rust. On the other hand, we have people that will like give a super hard task to the model, expecting it to write all this code from scratch. It misses a few details. So like, oh, that's useless, and then throw it away.
Yeah.
The middle ground is where reality is.
Yes.
The amount of random tech debt that I've been able to get scraped up and cleaned up across all of the code bases I maintain by just telling the model like, hey, go clean some shit up. Or like, hey, I have this file that looks this way. It should be this way. Here's 3 more examples. Go fix the other 5,000 of them. That type of thing was not viable before. Now it's trivial.
Yeah. And it's like, I've seen and watched Julius do this, and it broke my brain again, of just the way he does a lot of his work for like T3 code and stuff like that is that way, where he will just like do the feature and then just watching him massage the effect code and make sure that everything is correct and actually well put together. It is the way you read code now is you still do read it, but you find the things where the LLM did something really, really stupid. And there's a lot of nice guardrails that do exist out there for this to help do that first pass of getting the stupid out of the LLM. Like, I think my 2 favorite examples of this are the Svelte MCP autofixer and the Effect LSP. Both of these, what they effectively do is they take a snippet of code that was generated by the model, will run it through a bunch of static analysis that will look for common mistakes the LLM makes, ESLint, as well as like actually compile and run the code to catch these issues early and massage the LLM back into doing it right, because that's what's really happening. I like the pottery analogy a lot because the model will do its first pass of what it thinks is right, and then you just give it these guardrails that massage it back to there, and then once that first pass is done, then it's your job to keep iterating on that and getting it into the right shape.
I think this is still last generation thinking, because that's like the type of thing I would have done anyways without AI to like keep my team from writing sinful code. if it's a thing you would have done with your team, you're not AI pilled enough. I would argue I think we need more lint rules that aren't actually lint rules. I think we need more linting and more of these types of things that are running your agent to go look over some bullshit. Like, I agree we shouldn't pollute our system prompt with 1,000 fucking things that aren't needed half the time. We should be filling our agent MD with the entirety of effects docs. But if we have an agent that is filled with half of effects docs that goes over all of the changes when you're done and calls things out that aren't quite up to spec, maybe you have a bunch of these sub agents that are literally just there to make sure you are adhering to specific guidelines and things. Like, what does it look like if your linter is 100 different files in a directory that you run an agent over for all your changes saying, hey, does this pass? Does this pass? Does this pass? I'm surprised people aren't leaning more in this direction. I did see DeepSec from Vercel, for example. There's a good job of this where you make a subdirectory in your project. It has a bunch of packages installs for some static analysis stuff to try and group the different subsections of your app. And then it just runs your agent of choice across it with their system prompt saying, hey, look at these things, anything suspicious, anything that is worth reviewing. And then it does hierarchical levels of that analysis until it has a final result that's a bunch of reports and JSON files. And then another agent runs to summarize that after.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is the next step of the types of things I'm looking at here. I think that the Effect and Svelte ones both do a baby version of this because there's a lot of these things that are very common and reproducible that you can do in static analysis, which I think is good. Like, if you look at it, it's not just normal ESLint. It is doing stuff like assigning in effect, where the agent will often reassign variables within an effect, like a use effect, but the Svelte version. It's catching stuff like that early.
We're going to have another one of those moments, Ben, where I tell you have to let go more. And I'll tell all the people building these things they have to as well. They are still too busy trying to solve the problems they can with code to realize that the actual core problem that these are all symptoms of can't be solved with code.
I actually agree, and I've started doing more things like this. This is not a sponsored section. They just have a really good solution for this. I was looking at Macroscope because they sent us some new stuff they did. One of the things that they just introduced were these custom commit checks things that you can add in. So you have a .macroscope directory in your project, and then you just write out these markdown files effectively with, okay, look at these directories on pull request or whatever, and then give it a prompt for what to look for. And on one of the projects I'm working on, one of our internal tools, there is a section of the app that is private, passcode gated, only we can go look at it. There's another half that is fully public. And one of the rules that I put in there was a prompt of okay, all of these routes and all of the data that is returned to these routes and these data sources needs to be passcode protected and properly authed and gated away. This stuff should not be. So now on every single PR, an agent is going through and doing a full check based on that custom prompt to make sure that it follows that spec. It's not a static analysis, it's an actual agent run to do this.
Good.
Which is dope. It's really dope. I've been super happy with it. I've been using it for 3 days. I've already put it on a bunch of different things.
Nice.
So it's really cool.
Macroscope, sponsor us.
Yeah, you should.
I think it's time for you to try and local model pill me.
Yeah, I think
Gonna hate this section.
I think it's time. I actually don't think you're going to hate it as much as you think you will, because I want to be super clear going into this. I am not about to make the argument that you should throw away your ChatGPT sub or your Claude sub or whatever and start using local models instead of frontier models. There is no universe in which they are better, even if you actually can get the crazy hardware needed to run Kimi K26 locally. It's not going to be better. 5.5 is still going to be head and shoulders better than any of these things are. But they have reached a threshold where they are now actually usable for some real work. And I think as time goes on, they are going to get more and more powerful and be a more and more viable solution for certain types of tasks. Everything we just talked about with these checks of the auto fixer and having an agent go through and double check the code for is this correct? Local models would be great at doing this kind of thing.
The issue with that is that local and parallelizable are at odds.
They are. And there are so many problems with actually running local models. What this is actually going to be is not me ranting about how good local models are, but how painful setting up local models are.
How much inference of frontier models from Anthropic and OpenAI did you have to spend to get this all set up?
Oh, at least $50 to $100, probably more. And that is the only way I could make it usable. So to give some context on why I'm talking about this and why I started looking at this, was hanging out with 0xZero, really cool guy. He's in town in SF right now, and he was showing me some of the crazy local stuff he's doing because he is so deep on this stuff, some of the things he's telling me about. I think we're going to hang out and interview him next week, so we'll talk more about that there. The point is, he was helping me get local model stuff set up on my 5090 rig because I have same rig you do of a 5090, 64 gigs of RAM, Zen. I think it's
A
an i9.
decent CPU.
Yeah, like really good CPU. Just the whole point is that there's a 5090 in there. And I was not sure how to get the best performance out of that because the things I was using for that, which I think is what you're using too, was LM Studio. Because LM Studio is the only existing solution that is easy enough out of the box to just get set up and working with a
LM is pretty easy too, but
I found it to be a little more painful, but it's also easier. These are like the two like out of the box solutions that can get you most of the way there. But he went through and showed me how to set up the actual thing without getting bottlenecked by those. And I went from pretty garbage, unusable performance to 50 TPS on a model that is actually performing really, really well, running entirely on my 5090. And I was able to parallelize like 5 different runs on it. I can actually do real work with this and actually get useful stuff out of it. But setting it up was really fucking difficult. I linked an article down here from Armin, who is currently working at Arendil, which is the company that is doing that acquired Pi. I believe Mario is working there now as well. They're doing a bunch of random stuff. And one of the things that he was talking about in this article is pushing local models with focus and polish, because the way he put it is really simple and boring and easy to just open up Pi or OpenCode or anything and then paste in your API key for some provider. And now you've got inference. It'll work right out of the box. It's a nice experience. In order to get that experience for a local model, you have to pick an inference engine and then a model and then the quantization level and then a template and then the context size. And then you have to do a bunch of configs and flip a bunch of switches to get it to be exactly right. And there are a bajillion ways where this can go wrong. Like just earlier today, I was tuning my Quen instance that's running back at home. And as the model was changing some stuff, it went from 50 TPS down to 10 TPS. I was like, what the fuck happened? Why is this suddenly performing so much worse? Is there something wrong with my machine? 5.5 on extra high went for about a half hour exploring and researching stuff. And the thing it came back with is that there was an enforce eager flag that was being passed into VLLM, a flag that I had never heard of, that I didn't even fully understand, that was lobotomizing the hell out of the performance. And that is not, this is not a simple or easy thing to do. It required a lot of work for the model to actually get it into the right shape and actually work. And the current setup I have is using the VLLM Studio thing that Sarah made, and grabbing that down, pulling it onto my machine, running within WSL, the actual inference stuff. So the server is running in WSL.
Oh, is this all on a Windows machine?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's on a Windows. Well, because I need it for like recording in studio, so I could dual boot, but
No.
I don't feel like dealing with Linux stuff right now, so I'm just doing WSL. But what that means is that I now have the core of the inference running in WSL land, and then that has to get proxied out to Windows somehow, and then from Windows that needs to go through Tailscale to get down onto this Mac. And that whole process really, really sucked to do. Like, I don't deeply understand local models at all. I am not an expert on these things, but I know enough about how these systems and computers work that I was able to massage the model through this process. 99.9% of people are not capable of doing this. If local models are going to be in any way, shape, or form actually consumable by the average person, there needs to be an experience that is as good as like Claude Code is right out of the box, to where you run the installer, boot it up, turn it on, and it just works.
Can I go down a pretty crazy hole for an analogy here that's going to please our comment section a lot?
Go for
Because I need
it.
to talk about Obsidian for a second.
Oh, hell yeah. They should.
If somehow you haven't heard of Obsidian, I am very genuinely envious of you. There's nothing wrong with Obsidian. It's a really cool way to use markdown files to create a graph of all of the information that you want to save as like a note-taking mechanism and more. It's really cool software, like genuinely. I don't know if everybody thinks it's open source when it's not, but that's an aside. Obsidian is pretty cool. It doesn't make sense for the work that I'm doing with my markdown files that are how I run my business with a team of a lot of people. It's not built for that type of collaboration at all. Anybody who says otherwise is lying. I've even gotten the team building Obsidian on hand confirming as much there. That's not what I want to talk about here, even though the whole comment section is going to be telling us about how we should be using Obsidian.
And we really should be.
You know how Obsidian people are.
Of course.
They want everyone to use Obsidian for everything.
Yeah, of
they think
course.
it's like this gift from the gods that everyone should be using,
Yeah.
regardless of how technical they are.
Yeah. And
Okay. We're going to put a pencil on that for a sec. We're going to forget about everything I just said, reset our brains, reinvigorate. We need to talk about Vim people.
oh, hell yeah.
You were a recovering Vim person, if I recall.
I wouldn't say I ever recovered. I more just like didn't use NeoVim.
How long did it take from when you like got into Vim, paying forward the cost of like setting it up, learning it, and doing all of that to have actually saved time?
Not that long, but mostly that's just because I started with it. Because when I started programming in high school, I was watching a bunch of programming content, and like I think Ben Awad or someone was really into Vim, and I was like, oh, this looks really cool. He's doing it. I got to learn how to do it. So I learned how to program in Vim. So I've just like never had to deal with it. Like I've never had to deal with the learning curve.
As a really fast typer that can navigate things well, the 6 months or so I put into Vim, I never paid back the introductory cost. Like I spent the time learning it, then configuring it, doing all that. This was pre-NeoVim being relevant too. So like trying to get Vim to behave how you want to was a rough time.
Yep.
And it requires like a deep technical discipline that isn't the traditional like, oh, you know how to like compile a binary locally or whatever. It's like a deeper like knowing when and how you've gone too far, and that like this one thing you added actually can focus on something else and causes the experience to degrade, and that like this one plugin you installed that seemed good is fucking your performance. Now things are lagging when you try to do jumps and all of those types of things.
Yes.
Imagine we combine the worst of that with the worst of Obsidian people, and then go tell your grandma to use it.
Yeah.
That is my problem with the local model stuff.
Hard
is that
agree.
we are pretending this is not just usable, but like morally righteous, and everyone should be doing it, and nobody can because the shit doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, it doesn't. And it requires so much money and so much expertise to get set up. Like
And the reward for that, for spending more money and putting more time and expertise in, is a less stable setup that can't be parallelized, that breaks randomly when anything fucking happens, that is dumber and worse than just putting in the API key or paying the $200.
Yep. And that can fall apart at any time for any reason, and you are now liable to go actually solve and debug this yourself.
Yep. So a big part of why we're talking about this right now is because DeepSeek V4 Flash, not the Pro version, the Flash version, the fast, dumb version, is technically runnable on a 128 gig MacBook.
Yes.
Do you happen to remember how much your 128 gig MacBook cost?
If we didn't get it refurbed, I think it would have been like $6K.
I think without the refurb it would have been 8. I think the refurb made it 6.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine, not refurbed, on the M5 Max, 14 inch, not the 16, the 14, the small guy with 128 gig of RAM, M5. This one was like $8,000.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very expensive computer.
Yes.
And I can run DeepSeek V4 Flash on this. And it made a decent looking website. I'll put a screenshot in so that FaZe can put it in for those watching video wise. I asked it to like make a website about Theo T3GG, and it scraped my website and made something that is cringe because it used the fucking front end skill, and it fixated on the terminal option.
Yeah, it took the worst one.
But like I made a thing and it worked. It looks like almost okay-ish. Yeah. It did this after spending 20 minutes on my gigabit internet just downloading the model files, taking my battery from 35 to 15 as it ran because it's using a lot of power
and incinerates
to do something that is worse than if I had just used my codec sub. Do you know how many months of fucking codecs I can get for the amount of money this computer was worth?
Oh my God. I like forever. And even like you could have 5 codec subs and it would be years.
Yeah, 3.25 years of codecs for the amount of money I spent on this machine.
Yeah.
If we were to ramp down to something a little more reasonable, like a 5090 rig, then I wouldn't be able to run DeepSeek V4 Flash anyways because it needs more VRAM.
Yes.
So the best models I could run would be even fucking dumber. There's no point. It just doesn't make sense. Like, we're not running RTX 6000 Pros locally, and even if we are, we can barely run half the shit. Like, to get a fraction of their power, we have to spend a fortune of our money.
Yes, exactly. I think for me, what I am excited about and enjoying with local models is it is purely a like, oh, this is really fun and I'm enjoying playing with these type thing. Like there was some other stuff you was showing me where I'm like, man, you can do some really, really cool things with these, and I would like to push it further and learn more about it. But that is me being a nerd about this stuff and enjoying it, not I'm going to go solve all of my business problems with this.
Hear me out. There's a spectrum for this type of thing. On one side, there is projects like Linux that started as a hobby project that were really fun and cool and went way, 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 way too far. In fact, I just heard an anecdote. It was PB, Paul Buchheit, who's one of the most legendary engineers that's ever worked in software, specifically at Google.
I watched this video. This is a great video. I think I know what you're going to say. Go for it.
He got into the industry specifically because he was looking for places that he could work at that were using Linux. Yes. He wanted to have a job in Linux way back in the day when Linux wasn't popular. and found his way to Google through that.
Yeah.
And ended up making the search suggestion flows on Google, where if you mistype a search, it's like, did you mean this? He built that. He built like what became the predecessor for LLMs and hired the guy who made it way better that actually went and invented LLMs at Google. Like that all happened because one guy liked Linux a lot.
Yeah.
Even when Linux wasn't productive, it was productive in that sense.
Yes.
And it was by people like that forced into being like one of the most important technologies ever. Remember, I'm describing a spectrum here. On one side is Linux. On the other is Temple OS.
Yes.
I personally think a lot of the open local model things, not open weight models. I'm a huge proponent of open weight models. I want to like make sure that is explicitly clear here. I love and support and push the shit out of open weight models. They are essential for everything to get as good as it needs to be long term. Without them, we are fucked as an industry.
Yes.
We need good open weight models. We shouldn't expect our grandparents to run them. It is genuine mental illness to believe that we are going to be running these really powerful models on our phones on their hardware when it is so much easier to just make an API call and generate the text somewhere else. It just, obviously so. There are some things where it makes sense to do really basic tuned recognition type tasks on device, maybe a little bit. But this idea that we're all going to be running models on our local stuff, that we're all going to have our equivalent of a DGX Spark that I have and can't get fucking anything out of. It's actually hilarious how bad it is. But that all aside, I think people are a little too close to the sun with the Temple OS style of thinking here. They're reinventing the universe, and the result is something much worse. And I hope we can all agree that if somebody is running Temple OS as their OS, on one hand based, on the other hand, what the actual fuck are you doing? So when people come out and say that they're using local models for everything, they built their own cluster internally, they're using that for all of their work, it's really fun to know that they are getting 1/10 as far as we are by just signing up for a $200 a month plan on any of the major providers, other than Google.
The big model that I've been using the most of is Qwen 3.6 27B. It's like Sonnet 4 level, I would say. Like it feels about like that. It reminds me of that and is about as capable as that thing is, which one of my biggest realizations having used this more is like, man, these models were not very capable 9 months ago. Like Sonnet 4 is unusable in the modern day compared to what we currently have. But still, that is a threshold where like it is really cool that I can run that on my 5090. And there are some small sub-agenty type tasks for my very specific workflows that I personally benefit from having that model for, where there are certain things where like if I'm doing heavy classification stuff on like emails and that kind of thing, where I wanted to just like not send that data out, like if you were super wanted like on-prem type stuff, it doesn't really matter for us, but it's still like cool to have. There's a future where I could see these things being more useful, but are they going to be more useful for everyone? Not until chips get insanely better and models get insanely better and there's an insanely better experience to actually use these things. We would need to find a way to get 5.5 level capability into a model that can be run on consumer hardware, and we are not in the same galaxy as that right now.
I got my last two thoughts on this one. The first, this one's pretty quick. How many of the concerns we all have get resolved when secure compute becomes an actual thing where you're sending an encrypted payload to a chip that is doing inference on this encrypted payload that it doesn't actually see or understand? Like when you bit shift everything, and it just does that instead.
I mean, like every single security thing gets solved by that. Like if you just have like, especially for like enterprises and big businesses.
You know, that's why Apple's taking their sweet time, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
They're trying to figure out the secure, like they're taking the security enclave stuff that they've already been doing, and they're trying to make proper secure compute primitives in order to do inference without having all of your data go to all these random fucking companies. That's why they're working with Google of all places, because they believe they can make the Google models and not do the Google thing and share all the data if they can get this right. And I think they have a chance.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about here is all of the FUD that I'm seeing from people who don't really understand or are choosing to not understand about what's going on with how this stuff is priced. I've seen a lot of people saying things like, it's getting way more expensive. They're cutting our usage. We're getting less than we used to for the money. The only way you actually can guarantee that you're getting what you pay for is if you're buying the hardware and running it yourself. Almost all of that comes from fundamental misunderstandings of like the whole ecosystem. I saw people sincerely saying that Anthropic removing Claude Code from the $20 a month plan is proof that you should go spend $20,000 on hardware. Are you fucking joking? Like these people don't realize how delusional they not just sound, they are. And it's insane. I've talked about this before. I have a whole video where I'm responding to Primogen's video about what's happening with the AI cost subsidization stuff. The misunderstanding most people have here is they seem to think that these companies are trying to squeeze more profit out of end users who are paying for these subs, What they're actually trying to do is reserve more compute for enterprise customers that are paying like per token at much higher rates. They want more availability for those customers because companies like, I don't know, Microsoft aren't paying for $200 subs for their employees because those have crazy terms where like they can train on the data and shit. Real enterprises, real Fortune 500 companies are paying token prices. They might be getting a discount like 30% or so.
Yeah,
but considering that you can get $5,000 of inference out of the $200 a month Claude Code plan, that 30% off of $5,000 is...
It's not 99% off. Like,
Yeah, you can get a lot of Claude Code subs for that 30%, but the other 70% is even more Claude Code subs. It's like the prices we pay as end users are very different. And realistically speaking, I know a lot of you guys, I know a lot of this audience is working those types of enterprise jobs, but you're not the one paying the bill. You might not even see the invoice at the end of the month. You are paying, if you are at all, for a personal sub on your personal account that you use offline or outside of work. And that price feels reasonable-ish. But then you see all of the FUD and the fear being spread about how we're all going to be priced into these higher tiers. Maybe you are on the $20 tier or the $50 tier of one of these things, and that might have less compute than you want, and you're feeling annoyed that they're pushing you to upgrade, thinking this is their secret plan to make way more money. If Anthropic could just take all the developers on the $20 plan and force them to move to the $100 plan, they're going to suddenly make way more money. And it's more money than any of us could ever fathom in our lifetimes, but it's still a single percentage digit on their revenue. Which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Anthropic's revenue has now surpassed OpenAI's by public reporting.
damn.
This is those enterprise deals, and it's almost all like AWS deals.
Yeah,
almost certainly. Yep. So like those things are crazy, but again, they're under a compute crisis, not a cost crisis. They're not trying to ramp up the costs for us. Does this mean that we should own our own compute? No, no, it doesn't. It is what it is. The compute that is necessary to do these things makes as much sense to own as it makes sense for a service that gets peak traffic for 5% of the day and then 100th of traffic later on to have dedicated servers instead of Lambdas. Like realistically speaking, I don't know how many agents you are running right now.
Like 2.
Like are they actually doing inference in this moment? On what models?
5.5 and 5.5. Like, come on now. Like, yeah.
And even if they weren't, like, realistically speaking, most people don't need provisioned compute, which is what you're getting when you buy a system like this. You are paying a flat fee to own this, and then you're also paying electricity costs on top of that.
Yeah.
Instead of just paying when you need it and not paying when you don't.
Oh, yeah. And an even more fun part with the electricity stuff, I was doing some like napkin math on this because I was just curious. It's like, okay, you know what? Like, what would it look like if I got the crazy rig? I got 4 RTX 6000s. I got a Threadripper. I got a fuckload of RAM. Like, you did the crazy setup for way too much money. I don't intend to do this, but like, if you were going to do it, what would it look like to put that in my apartment in San Francisco? And my electricity bill would go up to almost $1,000 a month. Like, it completely insane. This is a little more economical. Like, if it was, I put it back in Ohio where I grew up, like I put it at my parents' place or
like
something.
600 or so. But
no, it's really cheap out there compared to out here. It'd be like $150 a month.
The power difference isn't that big. Like we are for base like levels 2x more expensive than other places. Like even the cheapest in the US. Our peak pricing is bad because we have the like. During certain hours of the day, electricity is more expensive
That's
here.
what it calculated off of.
If you were to do like the full day calc, we are at best like 2x worse than other places. I've done a lot of this math. It is very easy to get pretty crazy electricity bills. Like we're talking like $2,000 to $4,000 a year minimum for most of these rigs. And people just don't seem to understand that either. But regardless, I'm not here to poo-poo on the local models. I think that they're cool. They're fun. People should keep playing with them the same way you play with things like Temple OS. But stop pretending this is where the world is going. It's obviously not.
To me, it is just a fun, like, academic-y, researchy type problem of, like, especially some of the stuff like Sarah was talking about of, like, doing surgery on models and, like, taking a mixture of experts model. And since you're running it locally, you can, like, pull it apart and, like, rip experts out of it so that you can make the model smaller and run it on smaller hardware. Like, there's crazy cool shit you can do with these.
If it was easy enough to measure the damage you were doing, this would be really cool. Like if you were to take a piece of software like Lytix and remove parts and then run the test suite and see what passes and fails, like that'd be cool. When you're doing this with local models, are you going to go run every single bench to see how much you lobotomized it in the process? Like there's a lot of people who see models getting these crazy numbers. They go download like an FP4 GGU8 or whatever model, like off of fucking LM Studio or something that is a lobotomized version, not even realizing it. They try running it, they get shit results, and they're like, oh, all of this sucks.
Well, that is what the experience for almost all users is. I think that is the cool part about what is happening with the DS4 stuff. is like they have a Pi plugin for this where you can just like install the extension and then it will auto boot it and auto run it like naturally.
Doesn't it require 128 gigs of RAM?
Yes, it does. And that's the thing too, is again, this stuff is not accessible. The only like the best argument I have heard from this, and I'm going to make this argument and then debunk it right after, is it will give you security so that if the LLM labs ever cut off your inference or whatever, you will always have your inference and they can't take it away from you. But even if that was true, that's not going to happen. They want people to use their stuff. And especially now with all of the competition between these labs, they're not going to cut that off. They want everyone to use their stuff. They have to.
I stop for just a second because I haven't done this whole episode. Faze, if you don't mind, a Cope Corner right here for me. Thank you.
I'm literally about to make your...
I know you're about to come back, but like the start was the Cope Corner.
Well, yeah, it was the Cope.
You're doing it on their behalf. I appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. This is me lining up the Cope Corner to dispel the Cope Corner.
That's why I had to interrupt so I could still do the Cope Corner.
Oh, okay, fine. All right. Enjoy the Cope Corner time. But the point I'm trying to make there is even if that is the case, we already can't get access to the best models. It's already happened. And even if you have your crazy local compute setup, you're a fully loaded Kimi K26 doesn't come close to Mythos.
Wait, what do you mean I can't use the best models? Grok 4.3 is right there on the API. I can use it all I want.
Oh, true. That's on me, actually. I forgot about that one. But you can't run it locally. They could take away our Grok 4.3 at any time.
They promised they would open source it if they do that.
Oh, God, that'd be so... Wait, are they doing that? Are they... No, they're not doing that.
It's Grok 2 is open weight, I believe now. So they are kind of. It's like two gens
2?
behind.
Didn't they promise that at one point that every time they like made a new model, like they made Grok 4, they would...
Generation leaf is how they defined it. So technically Grok 3 should be open weight now. I think they're... let me check.
If it is, I have very funny things to do.
Oh yeah, they never released Grok 2 weights either.
No, they did. I'm looking at it on Hugging Face. It's
2.5 is? Nice.
Not 2.5, just 2.
No, 2.5 is open source as of 8 months ago, and Grok 3 will be open source in around 6 months, according to Elon, in August of last year.
Yeah, so that's never happening. That's the point I'm trying to make here is you are never going to get to run the best of the best models locally. That's just not a thing that is going to happen. But the only other side of this is that we are going to hit a point where of like basically good enough of you can have models that are good enough for most things that you could actually run locally, where like the Quen model I now have running locally is good enough for a lot of pretty useful, pretty cool stuff that is like, it's nice that I have access to that, but like still it's not the frontier. And every time a new model comes out, everyone moves to it. People don't want the old models. People don't care about the old models because more intelligence is just useful. It just is.
Well, while Ben decides to run Grok 2 on his computer, I'm going to go do anything else more productive. This is a fun episode. I'm done. Go hit the like button or the ratings button on whatever platforms you guys use for listening to podcasts. Reminder, we're not just on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I guess we're on Substack now. Is that right?
Yes, we are going to
Why
start
are we on Substack?
Because it's a good place to have all like the links in one place so you can just see them. Like you just post it there and you have everything like that. That's what Gurley does. It's good.
Podcast people, man.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Apparently we're podcast people now too, though.
Dude, it is such a weird experience going to like events and talking to people. And like now apparently I'm a podcaster and I have to be introduced as a podcaster now. It's strange times, man. Strange times.
Happens. Well, until next time. Goodbye, nerds.